Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. On the agenda tonight, we have Steve Cropper, and this is going to be coming from 2008, and we're going to be listening to some Green Onions. So let's get Steve up on screen and see how he gets on. I'm just going to jump in here. I mean, just as a composition, Green Onions is a classic example of melody being king. Steve isn't one of these players that's going to be playing a million notes a second. He's so expressive with his playing, and he really slows things down but puts everything into every note that he plays. And we've got this really wide vibrato here from Steve, and it's interesting how he uses it in the composition, because he uses that vibrato. It's so wide that he's tweaking it towards that major note of the scale. This is predominantly in minor key. So when he does pinch it down and give that wide vibrato and touches on that major key, it gives it a really cool edge. This composition though is an absolute classic. The fact that if you don't know it's called Green Onions, you probably have heard it because it's just on everything and you'll hear it all over the place. But because it is so melodic, and again Steve is just playing to his strengths and playing to the strengths of the composition, he wants it all to sit in nicely. If you shredded over this, it'll just sound ridiculous. The other thing is the fact that we've got that classic Hammond M3 organ in the background, which is like a lead guitar in itself, and it just proves the point that if you've got something that is melodically strong, you can stick with that melody for as long as you like and it's never going to get boring. I love the fact that he plays really deliberately so that you get the impression that it's all conscious. It's just him putting his thoughts down onto a fretboard. It's not so fast that it seems like just lots of subconscious routines that he's worked through, practicing in a room for hours on end. It really is a conscious decision to play these notes in this order with this expression. And this brings up an interesting thing about expression, the fact that when I do a video on a really top technical player who might be doing loads of sweeping, alternate picking, and things that take a lot of time to master, I get a lot of comments in the comments section about people saying they saw this particular guitarist and then they threw their guitar in the bin because they're never going to be that good. And this is the thing about people that say, oh, I gave up playing guitar because I can never be as fast as guitarist A or B or C. If you can't play fast, it's because you're not meant to play fast. You're supposed to have your own style, something different. Guys that play fast, it's because they want to go down that avenue themselves and they work at it, and they usually, more often than not, won't have any hurdles physiologically to then play fast. But there'll be some great players who play so slowly and never play fast. A great example of this, who I've done a video on, is Brian May. The fact that you will not see Brian sweeping and endlessly shredding. He always focuses on melody. So if you are playing guitar and you feel like you're going to give up because you've seen somebody do something really technical that you can't do, they will not be able to play the way that you do, in your own style, in your own techniques that you've worked on. So yeah, don't look at other players who are really technical and give up because you can't play like them. The whole point about music and art is to play like yourself, because nobody can play like you can. But the technical excellence in this track is nothing to do with playing fast, with alternate picking, sweeping, tapping. It's to do with being solid rhythm-wise. And Steve, when he does come in with the lead, not overplaying, but getting every note to mean something. We've also got Donald Duck Dunn on bass here as well. And don't underestimate the importance of that bass being so solid the whole way through. This is one of those tracks that, because everybody knows it, you've got to play it so well and so tightly in order to get it to sound like the original song, like the original record. So they absolutely do that. Let's get into listening to a bit more. I'm just going to jump in here. What I love about this performance is the excellence in the subtlety. Have a little rewind here on this and have a look at the upstroke that Steve throws in between the lead phrases, just right at the beginning of that little lead section, because they're absolutely instrumental to the groove of the track, but because you're taken in by the playing, you're not noticing necessarily what Steve's actually throwing in, where he's throwing in that groove on the upstroke, muted upstroke with those strings sliding down back into the next phrase. There is so much in here that I think if you play yourself and you've been in a band, and if you've ever played an instrumental as a band, you start to appreciate the amount of work that goes into this, just getting it to sound exactly like the track in a live setting. What you'll find is the fact that throughout this whole performance, Steve's rhythm work is so solid but so understated that when he then gets into his lead break, it really stands out, so that he is now the center of attention for this little part of the track. And then when the Hammond M3 comes back in, he'll then sit back, relax back into that rhythm playing, so that the organ can then take the center center stage of this instrumental piece. So there is so much work going on here dynamically. So Steve Cropper, great example here of expressive playing, how to do it, and that you don't need a million notes a second to be impressive. And that's the holy grail to every guitarist, just to have their own sound, to sound like themselves and be able to express themselves through the instrument and to tell a story to an audience so that the audience can understand it. And Steve is a fantastic example of how to do that. The other thing is when you're playing like this, just consciously the whole time, it is so much better as a way to communicate to an audience because it breaks down the notes into understandable chunks rather than throwing 10 or 20 notes at them every second or couple of seconds. It is so good to communicate. It's almost like slowing down your speech to make people understand you more clearly. And what a great example we've got here. Thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at in the first place. Keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys at the next one.